It's okay, ready. All right, Christina, I'm so glad that you are with me today. Guys, I am Danielle Roberts, and I am presenting Racina Johnson here, and she is going to be on my show here today. We're going to be talking about a lot of great topics, a lot of good things, and yeah, so I'm going to first introduce her. So I told you her name, but she is a trained doula right now. Also, she is a stay-at-home mom, God-fearing mom, wife, and wellness advocate. Okay, guys. So, all right. Were you able to hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure. Let me just mute this. Okay, great. All right, Racina. I want to start with how did you get into before we even go there, what were you doing when you were single before you got married? What were you doing? Like, what was your career after college? What were you going into?
So I'm degreed in industrial engineering. So I was working in engineering before I got married in the construction field. And I was also volunteering everywhere. I was in at least 6 different organizations, and a few of my mentors were like, well, if you're trying to get married, you want to pare down some of the things that you're doing, because if you're always busy, you're not going to have any time for your spouse. And I took that to heart, and I started looking to see, what do I absolutely want to continue doing? What do I need to back down? What do I need to pare down so that I can kind of get to know me a little more before I try to put myself in front of somebody else? Because to me, it's important to know myself before I expect to be able to explain to somebody else who I am and expect them to accept me, a certain way. So I narrowed it down to probably 2 or 3 organizations out of the at least 6 that I was involved in. And of course, I continued working.
So you were a doer. So basically, you were a busybody. Some people are not like that. Some people are on the other extreme where they're kind of like I don't want to say an introvert, because some introverts are very active. We have those moments where we gather ourselves in. But I do want to say some people are not as active, and you have to kind of push them out. I think I'm kind of one of them. Like, I'm the one you kind of push out a little bit, and then I'll go through a season where I'm very active. Then I'll go through a season where I'm kind of like laid back, chilling at home. But you said something very interesting, because I do know that you also went into ministry.
Yes.
Some people don't know that about you, but I do. You went into ministry, and you also, like you said, a season where you start thinking about marriage. It's amazing, because even in your singleness, you start thinking about marriage. How important is that? When you're single and that marriage is something you do want to kind of do, how important is to set aside a moment to where you start preparing for that? How important is that as a single person?
I think it's very important to get to know yourself. If you know that marriage is something that you want, a lot of times as women, we have this list. This guy has to have this, that, and all these other things, but we haven't taken the time to get to know ourselves and see if we're even wife quality. But then we get disappointed when the guy doesn't meet all of our expectations, and he's looking at us like, okay, and you are what? Who are you for me to, even care? Yeah, so it's like, for me, I had some good people around me that there was a pretty good singles ministry at the church I was at the time, and they talked about stuff like that. Enjoy your single life. Don't put that pressure on yourself to get married, but get to know yourself. That way, when it is time to get married, you know who you are. You have a better idea of who you are. And some people, they'll take the time and get to do that on their own without the coaching of a singles ministry. But sometimes you get so caught up in day-to-day life. You're working. I was in ministry school. I was working. I had done a ladies mentoring program where I went through that training through the church. I did an entrepreneurship program. So I had all these things going on. And it's like, who's Racina? let's take a moment to do that. And I think I encourage everybody, take a moment to find out who you are before you present yourself to somebody else and expect them to be able to receive you. I think it's very important to do that first.
That's good. That's one reason why I admire you, and that's why I have you on right now, because there were so many qualities about you back then when we met. You know, we've been knowing each other for so many years. You have been one of my great friend for years. You're like family, you know. And those were the qualities I saw in you years ago. You were very intentional. When there was something that you're wanting to do, you were making preparation for that, whether it was a organization, whether if it was a um, party you were doing, because you were involved. You helped a lot. You were even helping me organize some things back in the day too. you know, and we go back so wow. I don't want to date us, right? Like
Right.
I don't want to date us, but I do remember um, you telling me that you had wanted to get to, do things for yourself and enjoy your singleness, but at the same time, you did prepare. There were books you intentionally set out to read to prepare you for the next step. When you hadn't even met anybody, I remember you didn't. It was no guy on the scene when you were doing it,
Yes.
right? I remember we went to lunch one time and we were just talking and you were just letting me know what you were doing and what you were reading, self-help books and
Mhm.
Christian books and so many different things that you really naturally were doing because not just for a husband, but you were also reading these books to, like you said, pour into yourself as
Yeah.
well to be that better person. And then, one day, girl, you kind of stumbled across and met the guy, met my friend, my brother. You met him and you got married, but I saw you when you were not even dating. When it wasn't someone special enough,
Right.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I got you. Yeah, yeah.
So that's so good that you because not every singles, we sometimes, some of us singles, we put our time into the way we look or our image. We want our image to look a certain way. And yet we do not take time to heal. We do not take time to evaluate ourselves, reflect on ourselves, and find out some things that we need to improve. And so it's so great. Singles, guys, like you're like me, I'm still single, and there's never a time where I stop reflecting or bettering myself or reading books and evaluating, things about me and trying to be the best version of myself. So I think whether you're single or married, I mean, now that you're married, I still think you probably still do that, right? Even though you're married.
Yeah. I mean, as people, we're always evolving, right? We're always growing and changing. So it's like the person I was before I got married or when I first got married is not the same version of who I am now that I'm married. Kids have been added to the picture, jobs have changed, we've relocated, like so many things have changed. I've gained more knowledge, more wisdom in areas. So I cannot continue to hold myself or my spouse to who we were 13 years ago or even 5 years ago. We have to continue to grow with each other and we're constantly getting to know each other. And I would encourage anybody, married, single, any type of relationship, to always work on that communication issue. Sometimes things are really hard to talk about, but they have to be talked about. And if you don't, it just builds up. And you're the one sitting there disappointed and mad and frustrated, and the other person's going on like, what's wrong with her? What's wrong with him?
Right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, so it's really just like, okay, Lord, show me how to say this and give them the grace to receive and understand and see my side of what I'm seeing, and even for them to correct you, because sometimes our view of things can be um, marked or blurry because of personal experiences.
wow, that's good. Wow. Meaning how like when you say that, are you talking about like something may have occurred and you can look at that situation differently have this perspective, like maybe you thought, well, when you said that, I'm thinking you were rude, or and they're like, no, 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 I didn't say that to be rude. But if you never say anything, you might carry that in and think like, well, I think they were being rude, and really they were not being rude, and you hold on to that until it builds up. But that you're saying don't do that. Sometimes you have to pick a time to talk about how you felt in that moment, even if you perceived it wrong. It's good to communicate to avoid any misunderstanding.
Even beyond that, the human language is so varied. I mean, if you think about English by itself, how you say one word can mean five different things. So you can mean it, or the person saying it could have meant a totally different thing than what you've ever heard it to mean. So sometimes it's not even whether their tone was off or their body language was off. It's just you have a totally different understanding of what that word means.
Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you this: what makes you unique? Like, what makes you unique?
What makes me unique? What makes me different?
Yeah.
Um, just in general, I don't know, so many things. I am a social introvert. Like you were talking about earlier, some people are more introverted. I like being in groups of people, but I also enjoy space. So small groups of people. But as far as uniqueness, I don't know.
Well, that's
I
good.
think my research, I love researching things. I love helping people and educating people. Like, I'm a self-proclaimed wellness trainer advocate. So I'm always advocating for people and making sure, hey, did you know this about this? Or did you know this about maternal health? Or did you know this about workplace, time off, or, just different things. Whenever I find out something, I like to share with other people. Knowledge is power. So, is once you gain that information, what do you do with it? So for me, I'm really big on sharing.
Hmm. What made you really get um, get into being a trained doula? Like, what was that? What sparked that interest in you?
The biggest thing for me was after having my first child, just the experience was not the best. And we were able to go to a training program towards the end of the pregnancy, but we weren't able to get a doula. So the next time around, we were like, okay, we definitely want a doula. And just kind of seeing how they advocate for others. It's like the mama bear comes out, and then you just want to educate. You want to make sure that people know all of the things that are available for them. A lot of times, information is withheld. Sometimes it's women are often thought of as weaker and not as knowledgeable or able to retain information, and then add being a woman of color on top of that, and the information kind of becomes even less. So it was very important for me to make sure that people knew the things that I didn't know with my first pregnancy, and then also educating myself to know that everybody has a different experience. Everybody wants a different experience. Like for me, I would never elect to have a C-section, but some people do. And they have various reasons why they want to. So being able to step back and say, okay, that's your preference. Here's some things you can do with this particular preference versus, no, why in the world would you do that? So it's really just making sure that people are informed during labor and delivery in particular.
That's good. So when you actually got trained into that, um, like you were saying that those were some of the things that you were getting excited about, and you wanted to basically be a help to that community, to the women, that you don't have to just settle for what they tell you. There's more
Mhm.
knowledge, and hey, I'm here. If you need me, I'm here. I'm trained. I have the information, and this is what I can offer. And you have that understanding that everybody's different, and there's reasons why everybody want different things. But I also wanted to hit on because you mentioned earlier about communication and things like that, and we also talked about like verbal communication as well. You know, nonverbal. That's what I meant to say. Nonverbal
Yeah.
communication that can go not just in relationships, but that can go as best friends and family and how so when you're single, those are some of the things that you can look at your relationships, kind of give you a reflection on how you're going to deal with somebody a little to me, I think a reflection of how you're going to deal with somebody in the future, and you being a trained doula, is that something that you are going to do in the future? I know you're trained, and I know currently right now you're not practicing that, or is that something that you're going to continue to do?
It depends how my support system works. Working as a doula, you're on call.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah. So, if a woman goes into labor, you have up to an hour to get there. I
Oh,
have three and a half children. So, I need to have somebody that can make it to my house less than an hour to take care of my kids while I go and support this mother. And labor can be anywhere from 2 to 24 hours or longer, depending on the mother. So you need someone that can be flexible and be there the entire time. Now, I have looked into childbirth education, which is the classes where you actually teach people their options and you teach them what to look for when they're going into labor and delivery and when they're looking for a hospital and choosing whether to do a midwife or OB/GYN or, different things like that. So I am considering looking back at that again.
okay. And yes, a lot of people don't understand too when you get married and when you have kids and the things that you used to do or things that you started or wherever that is in the middle or in the beginning, sometimes things change. And how do you as a couple deal with that change? Like when career things are shifting or changing because you have kids, they go to school, they're not in school. However, how do you deal with that change? Is that a conversation that had you guys are supportive of each other? You're supportive of the different change.
Yeah, it is a conversation, but it's also where you get to pull on your community. If you have support people around you, whether it's finding a mentor or your own parents. Hey, this is what we're going through. Do you have any suggestions on how I can manage this? I joined a lot of mom groups on Facebook and then in person. And we kind of I had one particular group where we exchanged all like everything. My kid is 4, he's not eating. And one mom like, hey, at this age, he's growing and he needs more protein. So do this. Or we don't want to do Tylenol. What should we do? You can use turmeric. So like we exchanged all kinds of information. So it really was just communicating and not leaning only on your spouse, because that's a lot to try to put on your spouse. But finding partners to walk with you, people that you trust that can walk with you. For me, it was different mom groups. Being able to say, okay, this is what I'm going on. What's going on? My husband is traveling, and it's just me and the kids. So what do you do with this, or how do you balance this? The biggest and greatest advice that I got during that time with career changing was a lot scheduling
Mm-hmm.
and prayer and communication.
Yes.
Right. So a lot of times people say, go pray about it. It's like, okay, this feels so generic, but it makes a huge difference when you actually go to God about the things that are going on in your relationship, in your house, versus just only going by the advice of those around you. They're not going to know how to handle every situation. Some things are familiar to them, but even if it's the exact same thing they went through, they didn't go through it the same way that you did. So that prayer makes a huge difference.
And it might not the dynamic of your family may be different from what, like you said, from their dynamic of their family. So their advice may be coming from a different perspective. And I do want to say this because you said a lot, and the reason why it's great information because there's so many people that want to just get married and they don't think about career change. They don't think about finances that might change. They don't think about that, hey, maybe I have to join a mom group because this is my first baby. Especially to women who get married and then they have their first kid and then they realize, wait a minute, I can't do a lot of things that I used to do anymore. Like I just can't get up and go eat lunch with my girlfriend all the time.
Right.
And they don't think about it in the beginning. Like these are some of the things that they don't think about, you know, that things do change, and being married is more to it than just getting married. It's about sacrifice and substance and having a foundation with God, especially women of faith. Like you said, prayer is needed because we believe in a supernatural God. So we believe prayer is the way to communicate with him, and he knows so many different, God knows so many different things that we need when we don't even know who to go to sometimes. So
Right.
that's really good what you were saying, and I'm hoping that anybody see this video that are newlyweds, that are already, they're, you know, married, just got married,
Mhm.
or maybe they just started a family, that maybe they can use some of the tips that you just shared. You know, go to mom groups, get on Facebook, and um, you know, everything you just shared, for any women that may be watching this and they're in a marriage and they're brand new, they got a brand new baby, things have changed, they're women of faith, so they're not crazy. When you know how, you know, the emotions that come along with that, that change,
Yes.
and you're like,
Yes.
okay, do I feel guilty because I feel lost because it's not the same way when I was single, and now that I'm a mom, I have kids now, or I have a baby, a newborn, do I feel guilty? And that's when you were saying, no, just it's gonna be a change, it's gonna be crazy,
Yeah.
but we can get through with prayer and reaching out and communicating. So I'm glad you touched on that.
Planning. Lots of planning.
Whoever is seeing this, guys, whether you're seeing this live, and to all of you guys have joined us, if you have joined us live right now, I want to say thank you. I can't see comments right now, but I definitely will go back to this. And if you will watch this later at a later time, definitely leave your comments. If she shared any information that was helpful or useful, go ahead and put that down there and let us know. We definitely want to hear back from you guys. But Ruseena, I do want to say this too. I want to ask you this question too. It's something not too deep here. What do you feel about, this is something I asked my other guests. What do you feel about the so-called popular saying for singles like me when they say things like, what do you bring to the table? Do you think that really matters? And if you do, um, what is the definition of that? Like, what should you really be asking?
For me, when I see that as a married person, I kind of laugh because it's, to me, it's oversimplified. There's so much more that once you actually get married that you actually go through. So a lot of times, what do you bring to the table? To me, it's just, are you going to bring financial security? Are you going to bring stability? Are you going to bring, you have to have that stuff before you get married. You really do. You cannot rely on that other person to bring that stuff to you. What you do want is peace of mind. But the thing about that is, life changes. So it can start off very peaceful, but if you don't know how that person deals with conflict, it can become rough real quick. So a lot of people interview really well. So when you ask, what do you bring to the table? They can roll out the little script with all the stuff. They know how to answer that question. But when it comes down to it, you have to see their lived experience. You have, to me, it's more, how does this person deal with conflict? How does this person deal with rejection and failure? How does this person plan ahead for the future? A lot of people can talk about the future, but what are you actually doing to get to those goals? So it's a lot deeper than just what do you bring to the table. But again, that's my take on what that means. It may mean something totally different to somebody else, and that's the tricky thing about phrases and using cliches. It's like, well, what I thought it meant was, and what? So I really think you want to dig deeper. You want to look into stuff that's lifelong. And every relationship, I mean, if you look at how you deal with relationships, even with your friends, when there's a conflict, do you go ghost? Or do you actually try to deal with the conflict? Because that's going to carry over when you get married.
That is something that a woman, especially if she's dating somebody or talking to him and hopes to date him, that you look at his pattern and how he is, if he's consistent, how do he treat you as a friend or how he treat you as a girlfriend in the beginning? So that do make sense. We look at people's patterns and their character and integrity. So it's not just about money. We automatically know that we have to live. We're adults. We have to pay our rent. We have to or a mortgage or whatever it is. So it's just an adult thing to have a job. To have a job.
Right.
That's an adult thing unless the situation is if you're going back to school and you're staying with somebody, dynamics change, whatever, and situations are different. But most likely, I believe money and titles shouldn't be just something you look at. It should be based on what you just said, the core, what you bring to the table, your integrity, your faith. Like if you are a Christian, then how is your relationship with God? Because if your
Right.
relationship with God is not, you're not in communication, then how can you lead me if we get married? So you're
Right.
right. It definitely is something more. And I know I'm not going to keep you long because I know we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon. I have one last question for you, though. It's been so good talking to you, though. You've been sharing some really great things, especially for, like I said, for women who may be already married in a newly, just married, period, because we learn things at different stages anyway, right?
Right.
So anyway, one last question would be, and I hope I didn't. I don't remember if I asked you this, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. What are you passionate about now? Like, what are you most passionate about now?
Right now it's still social justice and wellness. I'm really big on social justice. For me, it just rotates what area, depending on what season I'm in my life. Right now, it's social justice and education. Previously, it was maternal health, and that's something that's never going to go away. But I'm focused more on education because my kids are school age, and I'm trying to make sure that they're being given the best opportunities, whether it's me advocating more in the particular school system that I'm in, or whether it's moving to another school system or private school, or all the options that are available. But right now, my focus is social justice and education, as well as educating my children, making sure that they're aware of their history.
Yeah.
There are a lot of kids that are only exposed to what's on TV, and unfortunately, there are a lot of stereotypes that are still perpetrated or perpetuated on TV. And, we are using a lot more media than we did in previous years just because we're in the house more. We're not able to get out as much as before due to the pandemic. So just kind of monitoring and guiding what they're taking in. So right now it's about kids. It's the mom life and the education and
Oh,
social justice.
I was there. Remember when my kids were school age, and I mean, it was all about that mom life. And well, yesterday, how did you feel about what happened yesterday with Miss
With
Ray?
Qatar.
Yes.
That was exciting.
Yay!
It was frustrating watching the process. It was like, oh my gosh, y'all really asking her these questions? But it was very exciting. I can't wait to share it with my children and explain to them, just the process. Like, even the other day, me and my husband got to go through one of the museums, the local museums, and it had a lot of Black history in it. Even though it was titled Durham Cultural Museum, it had a lot of our history in there. And you don't see that very often in museums unless it's titled African American Museum. People look at a museum. It was just titled City Museum. So being able to expose them to significant first that are still happening. And it's kind of crazy, to think this is just still happening. We're still having first in this area. But as I said earlier, women and people of color,
I
we're
was
still making first.
Oh, I was so excited yesterday, and it was sad that it is, like you said, the first, and we're in 2022. But I'm so happy about the first. But it's so good that you are sharing so much information about our cultures, Black culture, Black history, and being an advocate for our community. I had a guest on the other day, and we were talking about mental health in our Black community and how important that is, and health period in our Black community. Sometimes just being African American, sometimes we don't get the best care because we are being, um, just because either, like you said, we're a woman and we're Black. A lot of times they don't want to give us options. A lot of times they don't really treat us fairly, and that is a theme, and that is something that we need to really raise awareness. So, yeah. So I'm glad you are already in the beginning with letting them know everything that they need to know about their history and their culture and what's going on now.
And I try to expose them to other cultures as well because they have several Spanish speaking students in their classes. And I don't want them to fetishize other cultures, which you see happening. Oh my gosh, they speak Asian, they speak Chinese, they speak, look at that, it's so cool what they do. Or, oh my gosh, look at their skirts, how they dance with the salsa. And it's like, we don't want to fetishize other cultures. We want to embrace and learn about the other cultures. We don't want to look at them and be like, why can't they speak English? So really just teaching them to love on our culture, but also embrace other cultures. We're only taught in school European history, from the white European part of it, but you're not really taught about all of the other cultures. So just really expose them to all of the other minorities. I mean, what's called minority, people of color are actually the majority. So actually, teaching them that, this is who this is who we are, so that they don't get into that, I want blonde hair, I need blue eyes, I have to have long hair, I have to look like this. No. Here are the facts. Here's what this really looks like.
Embrace everything about you and embrace, because our texture of hair can be straight, it can be long. If we press it, it's straight. If we blow dry it can be straight. If we curl it up, we wet it can be curly. We can do so much to our hair, and that's the beauty about it. Straight hair doesn't just belong to other race of women that are non-Black. My mom, her texture of hair, it's not kinky and it's not curly. It's naturally straight. She want to get her hair curly, and she has to use other products just to get that. So that's another part about African American, that we already stereotype this and say this what that is, and we really are just different. We come in all varieties of different texture hair, and we can do so many different things, and that's the beauty about it. And it's good that you expose them to other cultures. My daughter, India, she learned, what did she learn? I don't want to say Mandarin. She learned Korean.
Mm-hmm.
It was not something I pushed on her. It was something she got into on her own. She knows about the culture. She started speaking and learning the language when she was probably 9.
Mm-hmm.
She has kept that up for years. She ordered the textbooks, everything. So even now she's into French. So
Awesome.
yeah. Anything else that you want to share with us? Your last words of encouragement or anything to women that are single, that are wanting to get married pretty soon? Want to have any last words?
I would just say try your best not to change who you are to impress anybody. There were areas, like I mentioned, where I was told a guy's not going to want you to be busy and all these other things and da da da. If that's who you are, that's who you are. So really just make sure that you make time available for yourself and for your spouse. So already know, ahead of time, you cannot be a person that says, well, that's just who I am, and you're just going to have to figure out how you're going to fit in. No, you actually have to make that time for both people to work together, and then recognize seasons. You will have a season where you won't be involved as many things, but you still will be involved in something. If you're a doer, I mean, you have to be doing something with your hands, or you'll get restless or bored, or so many, different things can happen if you're not keeping yourself doing something outside of your house. So if that's who you are, make sure you keep yourself doing it, but keep those healthy boundaries. So above all, keep healthy boundaries, keep communication flowing, and watch how you relate, how you interact with the people that are around you now. Your siblings, your other single friends, even your married friends. If you're single, I mean, you have married friends. So how are you interacting, your coworkers? How are you interacting and communicating with these people? If they make you upset, you just walk away. I can't wait to leave. Da, da, da. Yeah, there's some people you really don't have to talk to again, but there's some people that you have to deal with on a regular basis. And it intensifies like exponentially when you're actually married. So it's like you can't just expect that all the other times I just walked away, whatever. That doesn't work in marriage. So communication, boundaries, and finding how you want to continue being the healthiest version of you while making sure that you all still are able to maintain that bond. Oh, speaking of bond, date your spouse. Go ahead and start planning ahead. Date your spouse, whether it's weekly, monthly, get it in there.
In my book, and I know you got to go, but in my book, Love and Secrets, I'm gonna pull out. Look, guys, I'm gonna pull out my cover. New novel, guys. What she just said, because London, my character, she in this sequel, because the first novel is called "It's Not Just a Good Thing, It's a God Thing." That's the novel where she's single, but in this novel, she's married, and she had to learn because she was so busy in her ministry and all this, doing great things. But your husband he is like your first, that's your ministry. That's somebody you have to look after. And so she had to learn that, hey, she was neglecting him, and she had to start dating him. And so that was good. I like that. To date him. Don't forget to, and you're married now. So, hey, make sure you don't get to be in mom mode all the time. And just because we women of faith, you got to make sure you look good like you were doing when you were single. Right. Have those moments where, because not all the time you want to be in heels and you want to be in makeup, especially when you are a mom.
Right.
You understand that. But there should be moments where you get dressed up, look cute, feel sexy, and go on dates with your husband.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
All right. I'm so happy. We had a great conversation. I'm glad you jumped in here and was able to share so many great tips and everything. We'll have to do this again. I don't know when, but we'll have to do this one day again.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. I love talking to you outside of this, how we are. We've been friends for years. But I am really thankful that you were able to get in here. All right. Thank you so much. Anything else you want to share? You good?
Yeah, I don't want to extend the time too much longer. I could go on.
Have a good day, girl. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.